Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel today. I already started my process, and then I thought, why not record this for a YouTube video? And you can see I have just created a grid with some masking tape, and I have added a few stamps to this grid just to bring in a little bit of pattern to the background that might surprise me in the end. This is a watercolor paper pad, and I've used stamps from the Pencil Marks #1 stamp set. It's not important, you don't have to add stamps for this technique. We are going to make some mini abstracts today just to inspire ourselves. And you can add whatever you like in the beginning. I really love having something on the page. I'm not sure how much of it will be visible in the end. I'm now adding some scribbly marks with a Derwent Inktense pencil. It's a water-soluble ink pencil, and I'm almost closing my eyes to scribble this down. I just have to take care a little about the washi tape I've added, and I wanted to get squares because my art journal has a square format, so I wanted to create squares. That's why I have some rectangle shapes at the top, and I will mainly ignore them, just use them to try out different materials. My washi tape is not the best, unfortunately, and it comes off the page. Well, that makes it easier to remove it later, but if you have problems removing your washi tape, you can always use a heat tool and then carefully heat it, and it will come off very easy. I really love this technique to create little abstracts that then can lead to something bigger. And I think it's a very common technique for abstract artists, not only for abstract artists, because I have seen this technique in many different art classes. And I did something similar some months ago, making some bigger abstracts with the same technique. I'm starting with the Quinachridone Gold Fluid Acrylic from Golden, and I just added a little bit to my working surface, and then I use water together with the paint and just smush down the paint with my brush very loosely all over the page. I try not to think about, I try just to add that color. I also always try to make some different marks with my brush, drier marks, add more water. You can also switch brushes, use a different brush, just experiment and I would say play and learn your materials. I do some splattering as well. Yeah, it's just to get warmed up, I would say, and to have a play with your art materials. And usually with these mini paintings you get, some of them will turn out really pretty, and you can then forward these into a bigger art journal page, into a bigger painting, whatever you like to do. I also sometimes use this technique in my drawing sketchbook and make some areas in my bigger sketchbook with a random mixed media background, and then I would create some imaginary landscape drawings on that. That's also something I really enjoy doing, and it's always a surprise what you get. You never know. I'm using a new paint I got recently from Lightwish. I think it's a brand from Paul Rubens, and there will be a review video on these paints soon. I think probably on Saturday, but I wanted to use it on this paper because I tried the paints already and I love them, and I wanted to use one of these colors. They are granulating multiple pigmented watercolors, and their pigments separate once you mix them with water, and that gives a really interesting effect. Plus they are granulating, as I've already said. That also gives some really interesting textures. And I'm doing the same here, adding that paint. I add water, sometimes more, sometimes less. I just try to play and not to think about it. It's really hard not to place the paint in certain areas. Instead, just play it, just be loose, and just do not think in your brain if this is going to look good, because that's the fun about this process. It's just not to think. I'm also adding splatters with this paint. It's a really lovely paint, which is a grayish color with some kind of blue and red pigments in it, and it's so nice. Once they are dry, you get also very surprising results. Finally, I slapped the brush onto my paper with the paint. That gave me some really different marks. And now I think there is a stage in the process where I want to let things dry first before I come back with some other mediums. So you could also do multiple pages like this, so you don't have to wait for things to dry all the time, so you can just switch to another painting. I'm really happy with the results. My page is dry now, and you can see the lovely color shifts I got from that watercolor. And I will now add something that that does not cover up my white areas as much. I'm using some acrylic gouache. You can use acrylic paints if you want to. You can use gesso. I'm using a Titan buff color, and quickly realized that I think it's a bit too dark and I want to mix in some white. So I'm also getting out my white and a little bit more of the Titan buff color. And this time I'm applying the paint not with my brush, I apply it with a silicone brush. So that gives me another texture. It's more flat and solid, and yeah, it's just different to a normal brush. And what you also can do, you can use your fingers and paint in, you can smear the paint. That is also something I'm going to do. Yeah, just as I said, just play. Before this is drying, I decided to pick another pencil to make some marks into the wet paint. I'm picking a Derwent Inktense pencil again, and I'm picking one of the red colors because there is that red shade in that watercolor. Of course, you don't have to use the same materials that I use. You can mix things up. It's very easy. Just grab what you have in your stash to make something similar. And I'm picking one of these red pencils and I make some marks into the wet paint. that scratches away the paint, but at the same time I get some pigment off that pencil because it's a water-soluble pencil, and that gives me some tiny red marks in the wet paint. It's very interesting. I make some simple patterns, I draw some circles, I make some scribbles. I plan to use these minis, not all of them, just the ones I love the most, to inspire bigger art journal pages. And there will be definitely a video for my mixed media play tier members. Um, the the other weekend, because we had a video last Saturday, there will be a video every other Saturday. So there will be coming a video where I just make some art journal pages inspired by some of these mini paintings. And that's what I really love to use this technique for, to just get some compositions that I like and that I then just can copy in bigger work. I also did this in the past, making some canvases. I usually do not often paint on canvas just because I don't know, I don't enjoy it that much. Sometimes I really like it, but not as often. And that usually is something I then hang up in our house. Sometimes I also just cover old paintings just with new ones to bring in some new designs. Everything is dry. When I scribble down more of this pencil, I let things dry, and then here I'm going in, adding more scribbles with the same red, with that Derwent Inktense pencil, and I will use water in some areas to mix it up and just to give it some other texture and color shades. With the colors, I try to stay cohesive. That means that I do not grab every color that I have. I started with that granulating watercolor, which gave me that reddish and some blue undertones, and I started with that Quinachridone gold, and these are the colors that I want then to focus on. I do not want to add something totally different, just to make sure that everything stays cohesive. As there are some blue turquoisey undertones in that watercolor I've used, I decided to grab one of my Ferris wheel press inks to just bring in some of that ink. Ferris Wheel Press is a Canadian company creating stationery products, I think mainly inks and fountain pens. I get some inks from them regularly, and I really love them. They are very high quality and yeah, just very lovely to play with. And I use them for many different things, just not for writing with a fountain pen. I usually use them to make backgrounds, either in my sketchbook or for mixed media projects. Or as you see it here, I really like it using it to make some abstract marks with it. There is some shimmer in this turquoisey dark color. That's quite interesting, but nothing I usually want to have. It's really nice here in these inks, but I'm not using the ink because of the glittery effect. I use it more because of that color. And these inks also dry with some interesting textures sometimes. It's different from every ink. And these are quite lovely. I have a discount code for you in the video description in case you are interested, or maybe you are looking for a good Christmas gift. I'm also going to make some splatters with the ink. I really like splatters on my work. I think you know it. And you can see that the page gets more and more filled up with paint and with marks. And I think we soon should lift what we have and see how these little mini paintings turned out. Before I'm getting rid of that washi tape, I would let this ink dry a bit because it's very liquid and fluid, and I don't want it to spread all over the page. I really like when I have these white areas in between the paintings because they separate the paintings so nicely. Here I'm finally going in with that Derwent Inktense pencil I've used in the beginning to make my marks. I think it was a burnt umber. And I'm scribbling into the wet areas, and that releases some more pigment, and I just make some random scribbly marks with it. After the ink is almost completely dry, I am removing the tape. Glad that goes very easy because the tape was not the best. But as I said in the beginning, just use a heat tool, heat it up, and then it will come off very easily. I really like how these minis turned out. I will show you some close-ups immediately. I am removing my paper, and then I immediately cut the images because I think you can better see them when you have separated them from the others, because that is often very distracting when you have the other abstracts close to another. I had two paintings where the ink ran under the tape, and here I'm just using a white gouache stick to cover that up so I no longer see the mess, and that's the perfect solution, I would say. I'm now going through all of them, and sometimes I would just turn them around because I haven't made a choice what is up, what is the up, and what is the down side of the paintings. And I just flip them around to see which composition I like the most. I will now share some photos of my finished mini paintings. I hope you enjoyed today's video and you are inspired to create your own abstract paintings. If you want to see more videos, have a look at my membership. We have 1 year full of extra videos now. They are a little bit more, I would say, live from my studio. Usually they are a bit longer because they are less edited, and we will move forward with these mini paintings in the next video and create some abstract art journal pages with them. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wish you a lovely rest of the week and hopefully we will see us next time. Bye.